Grief is like steak and eggs, varied and unpredictable. Some days we want community, other days our hearts are hardened and we just want to lay in bed and stay there all day. What is the way that we can move forward to push past the pain, to live lives of purpose? How can we rebuild our lives, go through the healing journey, and live lives of hope, live lives of true beauty? This and much more we're going to learn from a very beautiful person, Theo Boyd. She is an author, she is a speaker, she is a mom, she's a life-giving individual. She has gone through traumatic losses in her life, and she is here with me to share and to let you know about her latest writings, her latest book, Hope All the Way: Discovering Divine Signs in Life After Loss. Without further ado, let us enjoy and learn about the most beautiful, adventurous, and inspiring life of Theo Boyd with me, your host, Onyebuchi Maria Akbati, who you get to call O Maria starting right now. Theo, it is an honor to be with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
It is my pleasure. Now, with your book, Hope All the Way, I want to touch on grief as a very fluid aspect, as you describe in your book. How would you encourage others to cling on to hope, which is constant and sure, while navigating grief as chaotic and unpredictable as it is?
Well, they're not going to be able to at first. And it really depends on what type of loss they have experienced. But if it's a great loss, a tragic loss, something that's really affecting them, the last thing on their mind, a griever, is hope because everything's
Mm,
hopeless. And you're in the dark for some time. I was in the dark for several days, weeks, months. And even now, many years later, I still find myself kind of walking that line, back and forth. But hope is always there waiting. And that's what's so beautiful about that. And, as many times as I talked a good game and said, I don't believe in God anymore, and I don't think there's any meaning to life, then the next day I would get some beautiful sign and I'd be like,
mm.
oh my gosh, and it made me open my eyes and realize that I'm still here. And the relationship that I have with my loved ones that I've lost, it's still there. It's just taken on a different form.
That's really encouraging of the reality that at first clinging onto hope may just not be reachable at that time and the journey that one takes. And it reminds me of the metaphor you use in your book of steak and eggs and just grief being so unpredictable. One day it's from two separate animals. One day you're dealing with the chicken and another day you're not. So it's very relatable. And I must say something that I marvel at about you is your capacity to this is your second book now. The first book, was My Grief Is Not Like Yours,
That's right.
correct? And with the loss, the loss that you suffered in 2019, I marvel at your capacity to, for one, share, and secondly, to accompany others in their own grieving. While yours, it's one thing if yours was 30, 50 years ago, but I marvel at your strength. And I want to just commend you for giving the world a book that is needed more than ever.
Oh, Maria, thank you so much. The fuel that keeps me going is when I hear from other people how my words have touched them in some way or how they're able to relate to what I've written. And all I do is write what I feel. And I've always been a big feeler, I'm a feeler. My daughter, maybe not so much. She's an attorney, so she makes a great attorney because she doesn't do the emotion thing. But, Daddy and I were always so much alike in that. Daddy was a minister, farmer, rancher, preacher, and he'd be in the pulpit and he'd be so passionate about his words. He'd start crying, and he'd say, there's nothing wrong with a man that cries. And I learned from the very best, my mom and my dad. And I started writing just as a way to get out what was in here onto the page. And, I was a high school English teacher. So that's what I've taught my students. And I thought, I just need to do what I've been teaching my kids. I got out a piece of paper and started journaling my feelings and never intended to write a book. And then one of my teacher friends, when I'd gotten back to school weeks later, she happened to come across it on my desk and read just a little. And she said, I hope you don't mind, but Theo, you have to write a book. And
Mm,
I realized right in that second, I'm going to write a book. I needed a book that hit me as hard as I'd been hit. And well
mm,
intentioned friends and family had brought me books, and I just flipped through the pages really quickly, looking for the page where the father ran over the mother with the farm tractor. And I couldn't get my hands on something I could relate to. So I just wrote it. And to see now that it's helping other people, the journey, the words, that gives me the fuel to keep going. So, yes, second book coming out in December. It's all the things that okay, oh, Maria, I wanted to put all of this in the first book. I was like, I
Ah,
got to fit all this in. And I realize now that was never God's plan. God's
hmm,
timing is so much different than ours. And so it's so beautiful because not even 3 years later, the signs were happening just up until a few months ago, right before I had to turn the book in. So I got those signs in another book dedicated solely to the divine signs that we get from our loved ones and from God to show us the path that we need to move forward in. There's no doubt in my mind, the two most important days in your life, the day you were born, the day you know why you were born. And
hmm.
I know beyond the shadow of a doubt that I was born to write that first book. And now it's just to like supplemental resources. Now I want everybody to see there is hope. It hasn't been that long since my tragedies, but because of the strong foundation that I had, I want to share with others. I learned from the very best, like I said, and watched my parents witness and their testimony in this area to help people. So just to know that story, their beautiful love story, is still helping others, that's the fuel that keeps me going.
It's like a legacy that just keeps on being strengthened, especially when you tell the stories at the right time. Like what you just shared with me is testament to the fact that timing is everything and heeding those divine signs, which is really perfectly aligned with part of the title of your book of Hope All the Way, Discovering Divine Signs in Life After Loss. Now, I want to touch on those two words, divine signs, and you've alluded to it with mentioning signs or divine signs. You mentioned within your book occurrences such as a clock stopping or a light going off, as sometimes those divine signs are nudges. How would you counsel someone to differentiate between divine signs and superstitious or wishful thinking? Like, I was driving and my right toe twitched to the right, so I was meant to drive right on the highway, or that means I'm making the right decision. How do you differentiate between a divine sign and superstitious thinking?
That's such a great question. I have many friends, and some of them are extreme about signs, like every single thing is a sign. Because, example, I'm out here in Texas, and we get all the yucky stuff like skunks and snakes and everything. And I had taken my dog Manly out to potty right before we went to bed, and I'd always do that on a leash because years ago he got sprayed by a skunk. Well, we went out. This was just about a week ago, and I heard him growl, and I looked over to my right, and there was a skunk just like 10 feet away from us with its
Ah,
tail up. And I was like, oh my goodness. I quietly backed up very slowly and came back in the house. He did not spray. And I was so thankful. Well, my friend was staying with me and she said, that's a sign. And I said, no, that's not a sign. That's a skunk in Texas that was about to spray me. So that made me laugh, but I was like, that's not a sign. That's a sign that maybe I need to keep him on a leash. But
hmm,
the signs that I share in the book, there is a very distinct difference once you read them that you'll be able to tell. I mean, the signs when I got them, I remember exactly where I was, what time of day it was. It was one of those flashbulb moments that you won't forget. So it wasn't just some little thing or, like you said, my toe twitched and I went, no, the signs will leave your jaw dropped and you will not be able to write it off as a coincidence or a superstition. So that's
hmm,
how you're going to know. But these signs were like, whoa, like that's crazy. Like, one of them, my mom's lamp on her side of the bed the morning of her funeral just completely stopped working. And it was so weird because it was just on the day before. The lamp was not broken. We took it to the lamp guy, the electrician man. It was not broken. Later, we wanted to make sure the light bulb, we put in another lamp. It worked. It just completely, her lamp on her side of the bed just completely stopped working with no explanation. That
hmm,
to me is a sign because it was on the morning that her body was about to be laid into the earth. It was on the
yes.
morning that her body was going to leave us, in the physical sense and go to be in the ground. And so that to me is a real sign. And then The butterfly, I talk about this in the new book. I'm giving some teasers out there.
Yeah.
The butterfly that lands on my hand, this same butterfly, same size, same color, every night for 2 weeks out in my backyard. I would just do my hand like this. Here
Mm,
come the butterfly. And I've not
mm.
had that happen since. One of the biggest signs, and I just want to tell people about it because I want you to read our love story, is yes, I've lost through divorce my marriage. And so that was another very heavy loss during a very hard time that I share in the first book. My grief is not like yours. And if you're grieving out there from a marriage, a loss of a marriage, that is a true loss and grief. So feel it, you honor that. In the second book, I share a love. There is a possibility, everybody out there, to love after loss. And I
Mm.
have found someone that I believe my mom, dad, and God are all in on because my father was a farmer, also a preacher, but a farmer for our main income. And my boyfriend now is a farmer. Okay. But hang on, folks. My mother was deaf. She lost her hearing at the age of 18 months from a high fever. And I talk about that in detail in that first book, My Grief is Not Like Yours. My boyfriend is a farmer like my daddy, and he's deaf like my mother.
Wow.
That's what I'm talking about, oh Maria, about
The
knowing the
jaw dropping.
difference, the jaw dropping. There is no possible explanation to me other than my mom and dad not wanting me to be alone and God intervening and giving me the most beautiful parts of my parents that were a farmer and my mom's ability to be present and deaf and me to inherently know how to talk to that person. So
Yes.
that's one of the big signs. And I share our love story, our new love story in the book.
That is like unmistakably not wishful thinking or happenstance. It almost is like it leaves you in awe and wonder for
Yes,
how this could
yes.
be. It's if your
We
toe switch is
still,
right, you might just need magnesium,
exactly, exactly. Go
right?
to go get a pedicure.
Go get a pedicure.
But my boyfriend, and he and I still to this day talk about it all the time. Farmer, he's deaf. How could that be? Come on.
Mm,
So it's such a beautiful thing. And I just want people to know it's out there if you open your eyes to it. And he only lives about 30 minutes from where I live.
that.
What were the chances? And in the second book, Hope All the Way, I walk you through all that. And a real quick explanation why I titled the chapters in the second book, different ways you can order your steak or eggs because when he and I first started texting and talking to each other, one of the first questions he asked me is, "How do you like your eggs?" And I thought that was so
Okay.
odd, but knowing how much he loves food now, it makes sense. And I said, over easy. And he just loved that because that's how he likes his eggs. And over easy kind of describes our relationship. And so
Mm,
I used that to kind of catapult me to write this second book and all the signs. And I titled them all like medium, rare, raw, well done, burned. I talk about a lot of red flags for relationships and things that
needed,
people need,
very needed.
very needed, and well done, of course, and just beautiful chapters titled The Way You Would Order a Scrambled. Scrambled's a big chapter about how we get out of that mindset, which you were talking about in the beginning, oh Maria, about how do we go from grief to hope. So I talk about that a lot in the chapter called Scrambled. And that's how we feel,
Mm,
right? Our mind is just scrambled. But with our eyes open and knowing that we are still here, life is for the living.
mm,
We have
yes.
a purpose, we have a meaning and a purpose for our existence. And
Mm,
that meaning in our life, that passion, that's something that we have to do. We can't sleep at night until we do it. For me, it's writing. But for me, going out to others, it's helping them discover what is that meaning in their life. But until you turn that meaning into service for others, you don't reach your purpose. So
true.
turn that meaning into service for others, and then there's your purpose.
That is spot on. And that even ties into what I was going to inquire from you next. You mentioning the chapter Scrambled and then the reality of pain. It's like the question I was going to ask was, how do you go from pain and just being, hardened heart and just really suffering and struggling from the loss, from the grief to then being other centered, right? Living that life of purpose. You mentioned your love and your gift in writing. It's like serve others through it.
I
That's
watched
the path, right? It sounds like.
it is. Daddy used to always say, if you're feeling down, if you're feeling bad about something, go to the nursing home and visit people.
Mm,
And I watched them live this. They lived their talk. They didn't just talk it, they walked their talk. And
yes.
I've heard from so many people since their death, things I didn't even know. There was a lady about 5 hours from here in Houston, Texas, that told me at the visitation for my dad that my mom and dad would go to see her son at the nursing facility in our town because he had many disabilities and that was the best place for him. My parents didn't even know this boy, but when they found out that he was deaf and when they found out that he had all these things, they started visiting him weekly. And she met my parents through her son. And when she walked in, she said my mom was just laying down whispering to him, and my dad was laughing and making jokes. And their whole existence on this earth was to make other people feel love and see the love that God has for us through their lives. And I just have to continue that. And I've always been a chipper, happy person. So it wouldn't suit me well to get bogged down in it. But in answering your question, we never move away from grief. We
Mm,
move with grief as our new counterpart. Grief is always
yeah.
right here. But the ones that are successful moving forward with grief can also incorporate and integrate their grief with hope, which is what I'm actually doing right now with my new house on the farm.
Yes. I'm going to touch on that new house you're building shortly. This is really encouraging because often pain can be so blinding and it can be so isolating, especially when it's pain due to grief or loss, in thinking, I'm just going to lick my wounds and I'm just going to rehash the loss and how horrific my life is, which is life is hard when one is in the freshness or when it's even many years ago. Your mention of the fact that grief is just, it's going to be there. You're grieving, but then you're going with it through into the next assignment that you've been given. You mentioned the two things in life is when you're born and why you know that you're born. It's like, all right, grief, I own it. I know it is here. Let's rediscover or usher in the next chapter of why I'm alive. Like,
for me,
wow.
it's easy. It's easy because I had such a great foundation. I talk about in the first book, I talk about all the F words, and that's foundation, faith, family, friends, food, fun. I have such great friends and I had such a great foundation. For me, writing is easy. It's how I get my feelings out. For others, it may not be writing, it may be exercise, it may be walking, it may be taking care of
Eggs.
exactly. You know,
All
it,
the E's.
it could, yes, it could just be anything. But for me, it was writing. But I know that I was given this voice to do something with it. And I
Mm,
know that everything in my life has prepared me for right now. So at 53 years old, I am serving who I once was. And I once was the 47-year-old high school English teacher home for the summer that had never experienced heavy grief. And so we are best suited to serve who we once were. And that is who I'm serving is that 47-year-old. Every time the 47-year-old English teacher home for the summer that grief hadn't hit yet, that's who I'm out there talking to. And a lot of people
mm,
say, like at a book event, I've never had to experience grief. And I always say, I hope you never do. But, it is best that we already are. I had such a great counselor that I talked about in the first book, and she'd helped me for 18 years through minor life
mm,
things. But just as we exercise all the muscles in our body, or we're supposed
yes.
to, we need to be exercising this one with a counselor and talking to somebody trained to help us so that when things do happen, we're better able to handle those situations.
Yes. And we are equipped with the tools of how to, rather than being hit with the grief and then being reactive, but being proactive and
Now, don't
preventative
give me
care and
right. Don't get
What
me
does happen?
right. Don't get me wrong. You're going to be down in the dirt for a while. I
Mm,
was on the floor of my shower, and with every loss, there I found myself again. Give yourself grace in grief. I like to say that. Give
mm,
yourself grace in grief. It's okay. You can be in bed today. You don't have to get out of bed. Tomorrow's another day and another chance to try. And just
mm.
know that the sun is always outside. You can
Yes.
stay in bed, but you can always go outside, just get a little bit of fresh air, come back in, try again the next day to stay a little bit longer.
Mm,
It's hard. I'm not saying, "Oh, I was great. I had a great foundation, great growing up. I knew how to handle everything." No. And if you read the first book, you'll know that, yeah, I was down. And there are still times now that I get down. Last week, we had to put our horse on the farm down to sleep. He was 32
mm,
years old and we found him in the field. He couldn't get up. That was very hard. I cried last night about it. I wrote a poem about him. That's me getting it out. So if you've got something in here, get out a piece of paper, get out your phone, and just start writing your first thing that comes to mind about that loss and get it out of you.
mm.
Or talk to a friend or talk to your dog. Talk to someone to get it out of here.
It is so necessary, and getting it out helps you to like offload it. And I thank you for your vulnerability about the fact that grief grief full or grief laden events still happen. There is not a foolproof, bulletproof vest we can wear of like, grief is going to hit me and I'm not going to feel it, because then that's not life. It's living in a fantasy. Speaking of vulnerability, I want to touch on it because you've share it deeply in your book, vulnerability versus having this hardened heart of what sometimes repetitive, recurring grief and loss do. How and do you believe it's possible for the grief and sometimes the closed heartedness, the inability to get out of bed, not even wanting to open the window to let the sunlight in? Can grief be possible and be happening for us to be vulnerable with it while having a closed heart and just being like, this is horrible. I don't want to live, and then be able to be vulnerable with others? Is that possible?
Most of the people that are down, shade drawn, not getting out of bed, they're not allowing themselves to be vulnerable. They're not wanting to get in a situation where the vulnerability would be at play. But the
Mm,
people that are moving out, that's the vulnerable piece. So if you don't want to feel anything and you want to just stay in it and try to close the world out, to
mm,
me, that is not being vulnerable. That's just being you're not playing the game at all.
mm.
You've checked out. And
Check it
it's
out.
okay to do that for a time, but there is a reason you're here. And I promise there's a reason you're on this earth. So try and talk to someone, get it out. You've got to be able to move forward. My mom lost her hearing at 18 months. Many things, went through molestation as a child. She couldn't
Mm,
speak. She was the perfect target. She went through so many things, but yet my mom never complained once and always smiled. And she always told me, that's just life. You have to keep moving forward. And so I hear that. That's just life. You have to keep moving forward. And so, oh, Maria, this is where I hope my words could reach somebody that's in that bed with the shades drawn. I recorded it on Audible too. So if they're not sick of my voice by now, they could get it on Audible. But
I
you
love
can
it.
listen. And Mama always said, and I say this in that first book, My Grief Is Not Like Yours. Mama always said, you got to just keep moving forward. And hobbies make you happy. So find something that makes you happy and do that. Do that. I take my dog Manly to the nursing home here in town. That makes me happy. It makes him happy. It makes the people happy. It's a win win win. So
Mm,
there's things that we can do, and they don't have to be these big, showy things on social media, or it can just be something as simple as going to your local nursing home, get your pet approved, See if you can walk through with your pet and see if you can talk to people. It's amazing how these people were more present and more cognitive of my dog than people that I see at speaking events. They were like, "Oh,
Mm,
is that a blue heeler? I had a blue heeler. You know, blue heelers live to be blah blah blah." And I'm just like, the nurse said that's the most that that lady had talked in months.
wow.
So I'm just trying to throw a bunch of things out there. There's so many things you can do, and the most important thing is to be gentle and kind with yourself. If you
Mm,
don't feel like doing something, it's okay. Give yourself grace. But just know there's another day to try and another day to try and another day to try. And there's a friend to listen, maybe somebody at your church, maybe somebody at a local grief group, maybe your next door neighbor. And if they're willing to listen and witness your loss, then let them and talk to them and get it out of you and lean
mm.
on them. And then they'll get you through to the next day and the next day and the next.
The next day, give yourself grace and let them in. That is simple but powerful because I feel we're so hard on ourselves. We're so critical. And the journey thus far of what I've learned from you and navigating that pain and getting and reliving or discovering our purpose or the importance of vulnerability or the reality of how, hope is constant and sure. Grief is, so varied like steak and eggs. How in the theme of rebuilding, right? Rebuilding hope, rebuilding a life. In your bio, you share that you're building a new home with your dog Manly, right? And on that theme of rebuilding, do you see a relationship with the building, the physical building that you are erecting with the rebuilding of life and the rebuilding of healing and hope after grief, spiritually speaking, even?
You know, I'm so excited about my new house. I'm so thankful. And I'm building the house right on the very land where I remember daddy feeding cows. And I would stand on
Mm,
the toolbox and I would sing to the cows. And then I'd pretend to be a preacher to the cows. And not very far away from my house now that I'm building, you can see where my mother passed away, where my mother was killed with that tractor. So I'm rebuilding on raw, that's one of the chapters, raw land, a raw piece of the land that has raw emotions, but I'm
mm,
bringing life back to the farm. My great grandfather, I have the deed that he signed in 1892 for the land, and he signed it with a quill pen. And of course, I never met them.
yeah.
Hugh Caswell and Emma Boyd, and I never met them, but I feel them there. I feel my
Mm,
grandparents. I remember my grandmother, her house was just a little ways from my new house, and I can hear her every once in a while saying, "Elizabeth, come in the back porch," and the screen door slamming, and I just all these things are there. So how could I just sell it and move on?
right.
I have to I'm a feeler. So I like to bring life back to the pastures, and we've been refencing acres, and we've been cutting and baling up big round bales of hay like the cover of my next book. And it's like, oh my gosh, this I feel like I actually manifest this. I've got round bales of hay just like on my book cover right in my front yard of my new house. And I'm
I
putting
love
up
that.
wallpaper. And one of my favorite shows growing up as a child was Little House on the Prairie. So
Ah, I love it.
I'm getting prairie prints, everywhere in all the rooms. And if the builder asks me a question, I just say, does it look like it would go on Little House on the Prairie? If it does, it works. And that's what my house is going to be. And I'm so
Love that.
excited. I love it so much. And I'm going to share a lot of that in social media and things later on. But I am rebuilding and I'm integrating my grief. So I'm not
Mhm,
putting my grief back here and I'm building a new house and I'm not even going to think about that. No, I'm bringing them with me. They're with me
mhm,
in the cabinet knobs that I brought from my old house, or in the old sink that I'm bringing from the old farmhouse, or they're in the photos that I'm gonna put on the wall. And just all these things, I hear their voices telling me, like my mom, "That's so pretty. I love that." And I'm I'm bringing my dad's arrowhead collection into my new house,
mm,
the big portraits I have of my great great grandparents, putting those in the house. So I'm bringing them with me. I'm not shutting them back as if they never happened. And wouldn't we want somebody to do that for us one day? I often
Ooh.
think, will my daughter bring me with her or will she shut me out? And I want to
Mm,
show the example of her bringing me with her. And it's just a different relationship you
beautiful.
have with them now. It's still there. Their spirit is still here. It's just a
Yes.
different relationship.
It's a different relationship of bringing new life to what once was. I love that. And so there is definitely a relationship with sometimes us physically rebuilding something with us rebuilding hope after grief. Whether it's
Yes,
rebuilding our car, and that might mean just cleaning it out, or rebuilding our purse by spring cleaning it out and removing the old lipsticks, or buying a new purse, or rebuilding our hair, getting a new hairstyle, cutting it,
right.
coloring, perming it. There's a rebuilding on both ends.
Or putting a cross where you lost your loved one on the highway. When I
Mm,
see those, I know they're putting that there because they want people to know, number one, about who they lost. You don't want your loved ones to be forgotten, but
hmm,
also because that symbolizes hope. There is hope. They were lost here, but we're still here and we're still honoring them. So when I go to the cemetery and I put out new flowers, when I go, like I said, to the nursing homes, when I go speak at a church, every time I'm able to share their story, I feel like I am moving forward with them. So people out there listening, watching us, you can write a book too. It's not hard to start writing your story.
hmm. And in that storytelling, you will find yourself in a beautiful way that you would not otherwise have been able to unearth,
Very
right?
true. That's perfect. Maria, you said it perfectly.
I'm personally navigating all of that with just several different past layers and life seasons of grief and loss, and the rebuilding aspect really resonates with me, and being patient with myself, like patience, patience, patience. And as me being a true beauty advocate, helping others to see themselves in the truth of all of their life journeys and the fact that there's goodness in them and there's beauty in them because they were wonderfully made and are enough as they are. Your book and the contents within it inform my own life journey, and countless others I know who will read it, and those who I will share it with as we are in this conversation. So this is so edifying. This is so edifying for me that yeah, I have no words as we start to land this plane. I do want to ask you this. What core message do you want readers to walk away with after reading your book in one sentence, if
Uh,
possible?
it's hard, but it's possible. Hope is always there. It's just waiting for you.
Mm, hope is
Hope is
always there.
always
It's just
there.
waiting
It's
for
just
you.
waiting for you. You you may not think it's there, but all of a sudden you're going to see it. So the grief is like black paint that coats you, and
Mm,
eventually it starts to dry and it cracks a little
mm,
bit and pieces of it fall off. And through those little cracks and crevices, the light comes in, and that's hope. So hope was
mm,
always there. You just couldn't see it because you were covered in that black paint. But
mm.
after a few days, weeks, months, years, it starts to dry and it chips away, and you're able to see the light. And that is hope.
That is hope. Hope is always there, ever present. Soul stirring. I'm gonna short sentence, but that I'm gonna just chew on that even after we're all done in this conversation. And one of the last questions is, when and where can we get Hope All the Way, Discovering Divine Sides in Life After Loss?
It is available now anywhere that books are sold. Of course, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, I believe Walmart, anywhere that books are sold. You can also go to my website at thinktheo.com. It's ThinkTheo.com. And a little pop up will come up and say, you want the new book, and you can click it. And
Yes.
it does release
Love
on
it.
December 2nd, and there's some recipes in there, and 8 of them
Mm,
are Christmas recipes of my mother's and my grandmother's. I'd share that. That's a little bonus.
I love bonuses. So it's available now for them to pre-order, and then it releases December 2nd. Is that right?
So, yes, so you'll get it for Christmas. Yes.
Love it. Right in time before the new year.
Yes.
That is lovely. And Theo, where can we reach you online? Do you have social media handle or a work
Yes,
email? How can we contact you?
I would love to hear from people. My email is info, at thinktheo.com. And my social media is all Think Theo. So if you go to Facebook, I'm at Think Theo. If you go to Instagram, I'm Think underscore Theo. If you go to TikTok, I'm Think Theo. So just search Theo Boyd or Think Theo and you will find me.
Beautiful. So essentially, the only unique account is Instagram with an underscore between Think and Theo.
Yes.
Instagram. Okay. The others just type Think Theo and we can see your writings and your work and begin to think alongside
Yes.
Theo.
And if you have trouble, email me and I'll just send them all to you in an email.
Lovely. Info at thinktheo.com.
Yes, ma'am.
I love it. Theo, it's been this has been a banging time to speak with you. Thank you for being here with me.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk and share the story with other people that need it.
It's my pleasure. And we'll be in touch.
Yes.
And we're counting down to December 2nd. And so my hope and what I believe is that the world will be so impacted by your work and by what's ahead for you. So I honor you. And we'll be in touch.
Thank you so much.
There we have it. Theo Boyd, the beautiful, the inspiring author and speaker, and I would even call authentic grief educator. As she shared, pre-order her book, Hope All the Way, Discovering Divine Signs in Life After Loss, on her website, thinktheo.com. Connect with her on social media, and may her writings and her story inspire you and help you to continue the journey to realizing your identity and that hope is yours. Hope is always available for you to receive, for you to live out, and for you to share with others. That's all for me today on Beautiful People. I am your creator, host, and executive producer, Onyebuchi Maria Akpati, and you get to call me Oh Maria. Until next time, remember that you are good, you are lovable, and you are enough. God bless.